We're on. Hello. Take two. A little more grounded, a little less frantic about getting all the information out. All the annoyance of having to do this again is pretty much slipped away almost immediately because I knew that now that I had gone through my dress rehearsal, I can be much more succinct and grounded about this information because I was really getting into how how powerful this moment really is. So let's get into it. My name is Dee. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. Um, Thank you for joining me. I'm really, really grateful that you're here. This is the Spring Equinox Catalyst Report that is referencing our sun moving into Aries on yesterday, March 19th, 2020, at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So today is our first full day of spring. Yay! So we're going to talk about the weekend because we're not coming too far. We're not too far away from the new moon, so we're still ending out our lunar cycle. All these things really important, but usually when I do these videos, it's kind of a weekly thing that does tie up the end of the lunar cycle, but also just goes throughout the week. But it's so much right now that we're just going to focus on the weekend and the equinox energy because otherwise it would turn into it's just too much, and it doesn't make sense. They seem to be distinct, different um, uh, I don't know how to explain it, periods of time. Like they're different compartments that are going to be addressed. So we're going to look at the charts for today, tomorrow, and Sunday to get an idea of what this new equinox, spring equinox energy is really bringing in for us because it's substantial, very substantial. I hesitate to use the word portal because I don't think it's the right word, but I'm not sure what else. But I will tell you that something there is an opening, but it's really more of like a it's like when you have it's like when you upgrade your power and you have to get bigger wires that can hold more energy, and you have to just upgrade your whole system in order to do that. That's what's been happening. And the equinox is when that power got turned on. The new transformer, the bigger wires, all of that. And it's turned on to go down into the crystal grid of the earth. um, that is something that is not my message. I got that from a healing that I participated and received yesterday, and that's part of also what I want to address is that anybody in the healing arts, if you're a healer, a caregiver of any way, if you're giving, you absolutely must be receiving as much as you are giving. Like that is some real shit right now because um, if we aren't if we haven't completed our own circuitry, it's essential that we work on whatever we need to in order to make sure that happens because if you haven't, or there are any inconsistencies in the system, it will be felt so much more, just so much more. And the good thing is that we are grounding grounding we're grounding down into the earth, the crystal matrix of the earth. So um, uh, there's a lot to be there's a lot of natural support right now, like a lot, and it's coming from all different angles. But in particular, if we're able to really get that earth star chakra really buzzing and online, it will be better off for it, I guarantee it. So but that was the idea, that the equinox was like a time where that system got turned back on, like everything got put into place. That was not my message. That came in, like I said, from a healing session that I received. So I'm really encouraging everybody. We need to be taking care of each other in this way. We all have these services, and just, think about what it's going to be like when money isn't part of the equation anymore. And you can kind of like feel that out and see how that would really look like. And that would look like we all kind of barter and trade our services as needed. And that's what we do, especially with each other. Just because you're an intuitive, just because you're a medium, just because you're a Reiki healer, energy healer, body worker, acupuncturist, doctor, naturopath, nurse, parent, you know, any kind of public servant, anything like that. Just because you do those things doesn't mean you don't need them. And this is going to make it more apparent than it ever has. So yeah, we're going to talk about the equinox today. Yeah, it's been hard to transmit in words. It's a lot easier to just do it telepathically, but not everybody's there yet. Mars and Jupiter conjunct today at 22 to 23 degrees Capricorn. This is the degree that Saturn and Pluto were conjunct in January. Okay, this is important. We'll get more into it when we look at the day to day. The goddesses, all the asteroid goddesses. Vesta is at the last degree of Taurus, conjunct the Pleiades, and is trine with Saturn at the last degree of Capricorn. This is also significant. I want to get into this as well. And all of the asteroid goddesses, because they're really important right now, and they have been making a lot of connections. Pallas Athena also conjunct Mars and Jupiter. You know, there's a real element of doing battle and kind of a military theme, because Pallas Athena is the goddess of war and wisdom, but she comes at it from a strategic position. She will go to battle, but if she can avoid that through her wisdom and her strategy and minimize the impact, you know, that's her focus. And she's also conjunct with Mars and Jupiter is kind of like the general. Mars is the captain of the guard. They are meeting up today at this degree where Saturn and Pluto met in January, which is receiving awards for bravery. And, you know, the degree right before it is actually significant too, because they all kind of feed into each other, which was accepting defeat gracefully. And we're talking about the Capricorn archetypes, like falling away. You know, now we have our military aspect that are finally just like, okay, I'll just take my medal and move on. Thank you very much. Like, it's hard to admit defeat, but that's the mark of a really good leader, is to understand that you learn more from your failures even than your successes. And so Mars will just take his marching orders and move on. Jupiter, it's been a little bit more of a challenge, I think, but it's finally happening. And then having Pallas Athena also conjunct with them today as well is very significant, you know. So this goddess energy is really important right now, and has been, but is archetypally also very important. So we're going to talk about that too. The goddess energy, Vesta trine Saturn and Capricorn at these galactic degrees. My, oh, my, oh, my. We'll talk a little bit about Saturn going into Aquarius, but that's going to be more on the new moon report, because that has a lot more to do with it. But what we're really going to talk about is just how the weekend's going to unfold, because we're going to get a real, because the moon in Aquarius right now is going to move into Pisces tomorrow morning, and there's going to be a lot of connections with the new moon in terms of Mercury, the nodes, Uranus, and the moon. Absolutely is going to be bringing us back, because we haven't finished this cycle. You know, the new moon is coming, but it's not here yet. And so we're in a dark moon phase. So getting into the feels has been incredibly important, really. And so what I've seen, and what I've encouraged based on what I've seen just in my own research and just kind of observing the social media landscape and, you know, the people that I'm immediately around, is that, you know, people are vacillating wildly, and I'm part of this too. But in terms of being elated or calm and joyful, scared, frustrated, straight up rageful. A lot is happening in waking, a lot is happening in sleep time. It's all over the place, and this is part of the process. And we need to really, really acknowledge and validate and just hold space for everybody to be where they are, because it's changing daily, sometimes hourly. I would say in my experience, changing hourly. And, we're moving with the moon moving into Pisces and having all these connections with the North Node and Uranus and then Mercury in Pisces. It's just, we're going to get kind of a reminder of what seeds we sowed with the new moon, like making sure, you know, coming back around to all of that energy and like really seeing how it's lining up with our karmic destiny. as as humanity on this planet. And that's kind of getting us prepared for when the new moon does come, because that will be in Aries, pretty much conjunct with Chiron, and so the tone will change. Aries is about potential, so we'll get there. So we'll start with today. I'm going to share the screen here, and I'm not as frantic as I was in the first one, trying to get it all in. So right now we're just gonna let it come in. Um, so we're at the spring equinox. That means the sun is now in Aries. It has passed Neptune, has passed Black Moon Lilith, was moving pretty quickly through Pisces as well. We have our moon in the last 10 degrees of Aquarius now. And right before she went void, of course. And what that means is that the moon is not making any major aspects to any of the planets or points until she moves into the next sign. There are minor aspects like semi-squares and other small types of connections, but they're not major. So, but that's normal. The moon is always aspecting everything because it's our emotions. It reflects our emotions, which is always aspecting everything and having a fluid relationship. It's very much like a dance. And so that's why tracking the moon and us being right now in our feels is absolutely essential. Absolutely essential, especially because it's a dark moon in Pisces. Like, this is the bottom of the ocean, my friends. This is the there's no light down here, and there's no way to really orient yourself, and it's an interesting time to have this kind of dark moon, and so it's going to just keep getting darker. And so we need to, at least we have the sun in Aries now showing us where all the potential could be. And that's the thing about Aries. We are talking about just potential. It is potential energy. There's so many things that could be created moving forward. And it's the sun is illuminating that this cycle is now renewed. It's coming back around again. We still have Mercury is going to be in Pisces for a minute. He's getting faster. He's regaining his original speed, and so all of this area, he's still in a shadow. Doesn't come out of the shadow till 13 degrees, and so we're still going mentally in our minds, the thoughts, the ideas, the messages, the communications. It's all going over old territory still. And this is something to keep in mind for the weekend as it goes on, because these are the areas, the Pisces Mercury is going to make a lot of aspects to things. So our minds, the information coming in, is going to be significant, and is going to be kind of a little bit of a time travel back to that new moon about what seeds did we want to sow, what was our intention. And that 5 degrees of Pisces is the church bazaar, and it's the idea that every social activity is considered sacred because it keeps the cohesion of the community together. That's why it's sacred. The community itself is what's sacred. And so everything you do to encourage the health, wellness, and cohesion of your community is sacred in and of itself. And so that cycle is coming to an end, and we have to kind of come back around and like revisit that before we move on to the new moon, which is going to be in Aries, and it's going to be conjunct Chiron, like 1 degree away from Chiron, which is pretty much conjunct. And it's just, there's going to be a lot of, I think, a feeling of wanting to finally, like really establish a sense of self-worth and potential, that there is a reason to even be existing. And this is what this Aries is. It's all potential. Aries is the seed. It's this little capsule that holds all of the potential there. And it really depends on what's going on in Taurus. Look at that. The soil, the medium in which the seed's planted. So we're going to be looking at Taurus. What is in Taurus? Uranus has been in Taurus for a while. This is certainly not going anywhere. But Venus is in Taurus. And if you look at Venus in the night sky right now, right after sunset is complete, she's so bright that she looks like a plane. Like, it doesn't even compute that that's the planet. She's so bright. And so I really, especially with the goddess energy too, that's coming in with Vesta and Ceres and Juno and even Athena, like the goddess energy and the divine sacred feminine, the earth energy too, is really important and is a beacon, literally. I mean, Venus is so bright that she is like a lighthouse in some ways. Like, we need to really start looking towards her, to get a sense of what it means to feel safe and secure and to feel good in our environment. And so taking care of the soil, conditioning the soil, treating it well. And Uranus, Uranus is just like, it's constantly disrupting and moving things. It's like the lightning bolt all the time. And it's hard because this is what the collective is awakening to, and we it doesn't really always align with our ego consciousness, and Taurus is still very, very basic in terms of where we're at on the path of individual development. Taurus is the world around us. It doesn't really have, we haven't really connected our ego consciousness to that. That's what Aries is. Aries is the ego consciousness, the me. You don't really get consciousness of self until you hit Gemini in the third house, because that's when you finally have a sprout that comes out of the seed. So right now we're just dealing with the seed with our sun in Aries. And so as I said, Jupiter, Mercury conjunct today, exactly. Mars, Jupiter and Mars. Mars has already moved past Jupiter and is well on his way. He's just like, I'm taking my medal and move on. And so by the end of the weekend, he's going to meet up with Pluto. And this is going to be another major, this is going to be another, some sort of major breakthrough, a major shift in the paradigm in some ways. And it's going to be forceful because now, Mars and Pluto have a connection. They co-rule Scorpio. Obviously, Mars rules Aries too. And before Pluto was discovered, Mars also ruled Scorpio. So there's this drive, and there's this power, and there's this hunger, and there's this ambition to do things. There's so much power. And so they're going to meet together in Capricorn at the end of the week. So I feel like there's going to be another shift in the paradigm that's very forceful, just because now we have the sun in Aries, which is the sign that Mars rules. And so there's definitely a lot of infusion of creative potential and energy into the weekend. But yeah, these two are getting their awards for bravery. And it's the idea too that like you're acknowledging the work that's been done and the hardship that's been experienced, and you've acknowledged that there has been real gains but also losses, and that you want to validate those who have been there to fight for that situation. And Capricorn, it is kind of a lost cause at this point, right? That's what we're coming to, is everything's dissolving. All of our external power structures that we thought were going to keep us safe and secure are just dissolving right before our eyes, and everybody's experiencing it through the course of this virus and everything that's happening. And so it's if we can align with these two and take, that they're providing some sort of like leadership in some way of, how to accept the failure as a success and move on. I think that we're going to be okay. Instead, there are going to be those that resist this and struggle with this, or think that they've done something when they haven't. That's the other thing. That's a different story. But by the end of the weekend, when Mars and Pluto meet, it's going to be what Pluto has been excavating and dealing with, like digging the grave for. Essentially, Mars is going to come along and just throw it in there and make it really obvious. And it's pretty morbid, but when you think about Uranus, also part of this picture, the widow standing at an open grave, that symbol, I mean, it seems, it's a total discarding of so many things from the past and what aren't working anymore. And it's just going to become more and more and more clear and obvious. So that's today. Moon in Aquarius, void, of course, that's what I said, squaring Venus. Aquarius is definitely the higher mind. It's the you take yourself out of your ego structure and you look at things from this perspective that is the collective all the time. So I've been watching Picard, the new Star Trek series Picard, and it's really based around the idea of synthetic life. You can really see, you can really see the themes that they're really preparing us to start like deeply considering in our own consciousness, because as we're moving forward, these things are going to, and it's, has a lot to do with synthetic life, artificial life. If you were into Star Trek at all, like you remember Commander Data, and like all these aspects around where you draw the line. If you're into Isaac Asimov, I mean, these are huge themes in his work about sentience and where does life and intelligence end and begin, and how is our relationship with something we create that we think is not real because it's not organic. These are all really important themes that have to be considered. Anyway, Aquarius. I was like, where is that going? Aquarius. Aquarius is like synthetic life in some ways, because it's like taking yourself out of the construct. Not that it's synthetic, because it's not organic, but you are taking yourself out of the ego construct and out of your emotions, your personal emotions, and you're thinking about things collectively. And so much of the social and physical distancing is very Aquarian, because we are able to connect with each other outside of what we deem as like material reality, in some ways. And as the moon, the moon is moving through Aquarius today, is void, of course, all day. So it's almost a time to really just kind of sit back and like receive some of that stuff from Aquarius, like within us emotionally. Now, the other thing I want to talk about for today specifically, and I've been wanting to talk about it for a while, actually, and I didn't know why I wasn't doing anything about it until now, because it's an exact, and you're not going to see her on here, but Vesta, asteroid Vesta, the largest asteroid in our solar system, she orbits between Mars and Jupiter in the asteroid belt. She's at the last degree of Taurus, and she is trine exactly to Saturn at the last degree of Capricorn today. Now, this area of 25, this is 25 degrees to about 0 degrees Gemini, roughly, is the Pleiades star cluster. So Vesta, asteroid Vesta, she represents commitment and service. It is it's the commitment to keeping the hearth flame alive, and the flame is what sustains the community, sustains the family. It's the idea of keeping the flame alive, the eternal flame. Vesta she's the goddess of that, So this represents that commitment to that service, keeping the flame alive for everybody. And she's at the last degree of Taurus. Taurus at the last degree is a peacock strutting around. Peacocks actually are like this totem animal symbol of Venus, who rules Taurus. What does a peacock strutting around do? These beautiful plumage that has these metallic-like colors, and it's just so beautiful, and they're doing that to display themselves of like what they have to offer. And this is very much about the end of the mastery level of Taurus. Now, trine Saturn and Capricorn, the last degree of Capricorn, oh my gosh, this is like the secret boardroom meetings of the people really in charge making decisions. It's so crazy. So whether you want to believe that that's like real, in terms of the white hats versus the black hats, or if it's an archetypal thing to you as like this precipice moment where these decisions are being made, it's trying directly to this goddess that represents our service to the eternal flame of humanity over the Pleiades. So that in itself is interesting. And they're trying, they are supporting each other. And so, there is a deeper service to humanity that is happening here with this situation. Absolutely. And it has to do, again, we're going to come back to these Venusian themes and how much Venus is really important right now. And Taurus, cultivating the soil that the seed is going to get planted with the new moon right on top of Chiron. So, excuse me. The moon is also going, and you can't, again, not on this chart, but the moon is conjunct Ceres, who is in Aquarius. Ceres is the goddess of the grain. She is the goddess of agriculture. And then Juno. Juno is the goddess of commitment, but in a different way. Goddess of the commitment to the structure of the relationship. She represents marriage. She's the wife of Zeus, right? And so Zeus wasn't exactly the best domestic partner. If you know anything about Greek mythology, I'm sure you understand that Zeus is kind of kind of, well, there's a lot of words. But she represents his counterpart and is absolutely committed not to him but the institution of the relationship. That's what Juno represents. So she's trying to, in Libra, she's in Libra, the sign of balance of relationships. She's trying to the moon in Aquarius. So there's some support into the actual institutions of balanced relationships, balanced partnerships. And the moon is also conjunct Ceres, the goddess of the grain, who is also in Aquarius. And this is a very interesting, and these are both exact today as well. So there are the moon making exact supportive and powerful connections to these goddess asteroids, and then Saturn in Capricorn making this trine to Vesta at the over the Pleiades at the last degree of Taurus. I mean, there is so much to be harnessed from, you know, the earth and the sacred feminine archetype right now, and really grounding in. And again, these guys have already accepted their medals. They're moving on. They've already accepted that they've failed at using power and control mechanisms to make any real change. And I just think it's wonderful that we can harness that today. Absolutely. And so we'll go to let's see here. We're going to go to tomorrow. Again, here we go. This is the 21st. So we talked about a lot of these themes already, but this is the day that Saturn moves into Aquarius. You can see 29 degrees, 58 minutes. This is the day, so this is tomorrow, this is Saturday. This is the day that we're really going to start to go back to, in a very deep feeling way, a way that we might not quite even be aware of necessarily, that we're going to have to reach deep down into our feels in order to see, I think, it clearly. I mean, it might be very present in front of us, but we might not be able to understand or even like see it clearly, which is why we need to get into our feelings, because that's where we're going to have that experience. The beginning of the lunar cycle, the new moon in Pisces, 4 to 5 degrees of Pisces. So on tomorrow, so now we see our moon is in Pisces, conjunct with Mercury in Pisces. This degree is the narrow isthmus that connects two seaside resorts, right? Ocean on either side. The band is going to be very narrow, but it will be there between the mind and the feelings in terms of our emotional connection to the world around us, to everything, to ourselves, to all of our communities, whatever dimension those are on. At the same, and soon after that, as she moves into the next degree, she'll pass Mercury, and then she will be trine to the North Node. You'll see that nice blue line right here. You can almost see this is like a grand trine. But it's not really, because it's more of a sextile. It's a connection though. You'll see it. Moon trine the North Node and Uranus are sextile with each other. That just happened a couple days ago. Exact, but they're still in the same degree, so it's still active. And then you'll see that Uranus is also sextile with the moon in Pisces, and then Mercury will also later then move into a trine with the North Node. Now the nodes of the moon, they have been incredibly challenging, because you're either with the past, which is on the war path to try to gain control back of a situation, or the karmic readjustment of having your stalled car just like smashed to pieces on the train tracks, the speeding train, which is our collective destiny, and the car, which is your ego consciousness. So hopefully you bailed out in time and not get like totally destroyed. That's the degree. So the nodes have been so challenging lately, and they're soon going to move into new degrees. The nodes move backwards, and so they'll move into 3 to 4 degrees soon. Uranus still the widow, still the widow at the open grave. This is, yeah, it's been, it's been sitting here for a long time, and still will be. It's only halfway through the 4 to 5 degree point, so it's gonna still be interesting. But this connection to the divine, this narrow band that we got with the moon and Mercury conjunct, is going to move on, and we're going to have that sextile with Uranus, and the moon's going to trine the node, and then Mercury himself is going to trine the North Node. So what is this degree? It's the church bazaar, 4 to 5 degrees Pisces. It was where the new moon happened. It is is the idea I just talked about, the sacred, right? The sacred, every act within the community that holds the community together is sacred, because the community is held together by sacredness, the essence of the community. That's why it's labeled as a church bazaar, because it's got the religion or the spiritual undertones of what holds the community together. But it's even the most mundane activities that keep the community healthy and well and cohesive. We're going to see what that really feels like. We're going to get to readdress that, and we're going to get, in terms of the North Node, is going to completely support that. And then this willingness to let go of the past, the Uranus and Taurus, really is also going to activate or be activated by this narrow band, or not that too, the narrow band with Mercury, but taking that a step further and applying that to the entire collective, in terms of the sacredness of each activity, that taking care of each other is the sacred act of the community. And that's going to become, that's why I'm just like, you got to take care of yourself. We need to be taking care of each other, reaching out when we need help, offering all of that stuff. And then Mercury is going to come around, like I said, and trine the North Node as well. And so that's going to be in our minds, the messages. We're going to see a lot of messages. We're going to see a lot of information that is coming in, either personally or through whatever channels that we have open. It's going to come in. And so we're going to really, as the moon cycle does close out, we're going to have a chance really to revisit that new moon in a different context entirely. This is also the same day that, like I said, Saturn moves into Aquarius, and we'll address that a lot more later. So when we move on to Sunday, this Sunday, the 22nd, yeah, see, look at all, I mean, these lines are just intense. They're so bold, and there's so many of them, and they're all kind of situated on that side. They're very, very one-sided. It's very interesting. So when we get to Sunday, we still have our moon in Pisces. It's going to be in Pisces all day. She has, this is at noon Pacific Standard Time, so she's going to come into a conjunction with Neptune in Pisces. Not only that, is going to sextile our Venus in Taurus, and then come along. Oh yeah, and then yeah, that's what it's going to do. And then there are other major things happening. So Mercury is going to then sextile Uranus as well at the same 4 to 5 degree thing. So that's, you know, this is just an extension of the day before, really, when it comes to this like Pisces energy of like the sacredness of every aspect of life, basically. Venus is also going to is sextile. So the moon is going to sextile Venus and is also going to conjunct Neptune. And so emotionally, internally, we're all going to feel that connection, but then it's going to become very real in material land when Venus also sextiles Neptune. And this is the degree that Neptune has been the transmission, the master transmitting the information to the disciple. It is passing down of the spiritual knowledge so that it is able to be continually transmitted and it's not lost. And we have Neptune doing it. In Pisces, you know, this is the degree of Pisces, but Neptune is the ruler. So we are getting the most powerful, the most potent, like the direct connection to source type of transmissions that are happening. So much support. And now it's going to come into real time. This degree of Taurus is a new continent rising out of the ocean. Oh my God, I just got chills. A new continent rising out of the ocean. You know, this is the transmission, the support from source that's been coming in so much with Neptune is really going to activate like real material changes. Something rising out of the ocean. Isn't that even more interesting? Because Pisces is the ocean. And so a new form coming out of that collective unconscious. With Venus, I mean, she is she's the empress. She's helping bring this into form. And then the interesting thing, this is so lovely, but then what we have that's going to, it's going to have an interesting tone, is that Mars is going to be conjunct with Pluto. Now, these two are connected to each other, as I said. They both used to rule Scorpio, and they both do. They're both co-rulers of Scorpio, and so they're connected to each other. Um, and so when they meet, there's a lot of power, a lot of power. You know, Pluto's been digging that grave in Capricorn for so long, since 2008, and is just like, you're almost done digging that grave. And Mars is going to come along and just chuck what's gone. Like, he doesn't even really care. Just gonna, because that's just the work, you know. He's just gonna chuck it in there. It's time to let that shit go. You know, it's gone and done. You know, Mars is no problem following the orders, and the orders are, um, you know, you've lost the battle, you've gotten your award, and now it's time to start manifesting something completely different based out of those failures and what you've learned. And so part of that is giving up the thing. You know, Pluto has been at this degree for a long time now, in terms, and it's the precious rugs and precious Oriental rugs in a store, and it's this refinement, this artistic refinement in our culture that allows us to do all these wonderful things. They represent all these like beautiful things that represent the total refinement of our culture, artistic refinement. And when you talk about rugs, you can think about like prayer rugs, prayer mats, you know, something that we can even like prostrate ourselves on to worship. Even those things are beautiful, and those come from an established culture, traditions in an established culture, passed down like crafts and trades. All of these things are Capricorn. This is the very essence of what makes our culture our culture. And Sunday is going to be another shift day, as far as I can tell. Like, things are going to, it's going to be another one of those days where they're like it's very paradigm shifting in some ways. So it's just something to keep in mind as the weekend unfolds. And then as we move into Monday and Tuesday, we're going to have the new moon, which is going to be 4 to 5 degrees of Aries. And not only that, the sun is going to square the nodes right before that as well. And Chiron, you know, um, the moon is going to conjunct Chiron. And so is the new moon. Like, the new moon position is pretty much going to conjunct Chiron within a degree. And then right after that, the moon conjuncts Chiron. And then within the next day of the new moon, the sun conjuncts Chiron in Aries. And so this concept of potential energy and the ego consciousness that is pure in form of something completely new that hasn't even like germinated yet, because we haven't even gotten it into the soil necessarily, is going to start coming. We're going to start getting our attention there. But right now, through the weekend, we're still in the dark moon phase, and we still have a lot of Pisces energy with the moon in Pisces. Mercury is going to be in Pisces, and then a lot of sextiles with earth and water. It's going to be really important that we, like, get into the boat and just like go along with it, because these are momentums that are beyond what we physically and materially think we can like control or handle. And so yeah, really reach out if you need work, or healing, or just validation or connection to people. The whole taking care of each other is the work. And we have so much support outside of just us right now that is helping anchor all of this into place. And so it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be upset and rageful, frustrated, sad. It's also okay to be elated, joyful, calm, excited. All of it's okay, because all of it's part of the experience. And we have to I think getting into the feels this weekend is going to be really important, um, in order to gracefully move into the next cycle, which is not only lunar and seasonal, but it's also a cycle that we have never experienced as like humans on this planet. And it's really exciting, and it's really scary all at the same time. And it's really important that if you identify as a light worker or a starseed, or an indigo, that you know that this is part of why you're here, and to take your mission. You know what I mean? Take your mission. You already have your mission. You know what your mission is. You've known the whole time you've been here. And so part of that is like connecting very deeply with the earth, because that matrix, you know, that power grid is definitely like coming online. And so we can make life a lot easier for ourselves if we just integrate into that instead of trying to pull energy from places that we can't pull energy from anymore because those systems are kind of going away. So okay, that's a lot of information. Oh, wow. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Everything you need is in the description box below. Comments are great on the YouTube video. Not only do they help with the algorithm and getting this information out, I just love to know where people are at and how these times are affecting them. You can also reach out by email. Feel free if you know this content. I'm not trying to monetize this particular content. So, but if you do feel called to donate, it's always appreciated. And you can do that through PayPal with the email catalystenergies@gmail.com. This will also be in the description box, so that's good for you to be able to know what's going on. Yeah, I'm excited for life and terrified all at the same time. And I've had the most profound personal shifts that I might have ever had in my life in the last last 24 hours, but definitely in the last 6 months. So you can start to see why all these things maybe have been happening when we've been feeling lost or we want to give up. And you're like, oh no, that's right. This is all part of the plan. So there's going to be a new moon video in just a couple of days. So just hold tight. It's coming. Reach out if you need anything. I love you guys. I'll see you on the next video.